I honestly think you ought to sit down calmly, take a stress pill, and think things over.
Welcome, one and all, to the very first episode of the Summer of Sci-Fi here at the Arkham Sessions. My name is Brian Ward. With me, as always, the psychologist to the superheroes, superheroines, and supervillains of Gotham City, and now space. She's Dr. Drea Letamendi. Hello, Drea.
Hi, Brian.
I got very excited about that intro.
I'm excited too. This is our hot space summer.
It's a very hot space summer. We are recording this episode on July 4th. So if you start to hear fireworks, as I'm sure you will, that's why. But that's how seriously we're taking this Summer of Sci-Fi. We decided to start it on July 4th. Drea, you wanted to do this after the season that we just wrapped, which was our analysis of season 1 of Harley Quinn. You can listen to those episodes now. Our patrons are currently deciding what we are going to cover next. And there was going to be a little bit of a gap between what we've covered and what we're going to cover next. And you came up with this brilliant idea. If there's anything that gets you excited, it's a science fiction movie.
Well, I do want to credit one of our listeners, Peter, for reaching out to me and saying that 2001: A Space Odyssey is a movie that we should consider covering. Uh-huh. And that then led me to think about what other sci-fi movies could we talk about. And I really wanted to kind of curate a group of movies that had some connective tissue. Some will, some less so, but had a theme around space and futurism, if you will. Okay. So that's going to be the theme of these 5 movies we're covering for the summer.
And we're covering them a little differently than we normally would. Normally, we would do a straight podcast where we watched the TV series or the movie, and then we come back and we discuss it. This time, we have decided that for these 5 episodes, we're going to do it more in the style of, say, a React video, and maybe a little bit of a hybrid where I'm giving you little tidbits of information about the making of the movies, because I've seen all 5 of the ones that we are covering. Drea has not, so she will not be able to help you in the filmmaking aspect of the storytelling, but she is going to chime in where she sees great psychological science. And then at the end of the episode, we're going to boil it all down into a little bit of a conversation about what we thought about the film and all of that. So stay tuned for that. Drea, you mentioned it. Our first film is going to be 2001: A Space Odyssey, written by Stanley Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke, based on a series of stories by Arthur C. Clarke, and then reimagined, I guess, published as a novel written by Arthur C. Clarke and Stanley Kubrick. He got a co-author credit. And it has since gone on to have a little bit of a franchise. I believe there are 4 books in the series. Maybe 3 or 4 books in the series. We're covering the first film now. It is obviously a incredibly influential film in the history of cinema, so we're looking forward to it. And Drea, if you're ready, I think we could probably get started. What do you think?
Let's dive in.
All right. Just in case you haven't gotten all your popcorn and your drinks ready, you got a little time.
Yeah, what's happening? What? Is my screen not working?
No, it's working. I always took this as, because the beginning of this movie is about the dawn of mankind, I always took this first bit to be sort of before there was anything, there was nothing. Interestingly, the majority of the music, if not all of the music in this particular film, is it's all classical music. None of it's original score. The original composer was someone named Alex North. He had done Dr. Strangelove previously for Kubrick. He'd also done Spartacus. But eventually Kubrick threw the score out and just kept his original classical pieces. Here we go. What do you remember about this movie, if anything?
I've seen it maybe one time, probably 20 years ago.
So
I don't remember much.
I was going to say, my understanding of what you remember of movies that you saw 20 years ago, not a whole lot.
I think there's a monolith, and it's confusing. It's unclear what it is.
Do you remember how long there is between the beginning of the movie and the first line of dialogue?
No.
It's roughly, I think it's just over 25 minutes.
Is there a version of this that has a narration?
No, you are being taken through the actual dawn of man. So no one here to narrate.
So very nonverbal time.
Yes.
I can't yet tell if these are real apes.
Not real apes.
Okay.
Definitely people in costumes. And you may be surprised to learn that the lead ape in this sequence...
How do I know which is the lead ape?
Well, he'll have a very prominent featured spot later on in this sequence. He actually has a name. His name is Moonwatcher.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Wait, that's a real leopard.
Yep. But it's amazing what sound can do.
Okay.
You can train a leopard to jump on a person and not hurt them. And then when you throw in the sound, it really seems a whole lot more sinister. I do appreciate that when you look at these apes, they do not look exactly like the apes we know today, because this is obviously from where mankind evolved. Mm-hmm. So I like that there's a little bit of difference, even though you could chalk up the difference to, oh, these are people in suits. I like that it implies that there is a difference between what we evolve from and what exists now. So this one's Moonwatcher. There it is. Our first look at the monolith. This movie could have been a very different movie, because that monolith is basically this iconic structure, super simple. Could have been something very different as originally imagined by Kubrick. He originally wanted it to be a clear tetrahedron shape, I guess, to show off the complexity and simplicity at the same time. But in the end, the company that was responsible for putting it together and putting it on set ultimately said that the structure just wasn't going to be stable. It wasn't going to be good enough for what he wanted. So they instead proposed this monolith, but it was clear. And Kubrick hated the way that it looked So he insisted that they make it black. And now it's become one of the most iconic images in all of film history. And now they're reaching out and touching knowledge. The fact that they are touching the monolith is sort of what's giving them this evolution, this mind that is expanding.
Oh,
Here comes one of the greatest cuts in cinema history.
oh,
And now we're in 2001.
you're saying the monolith introduced knowledge, but from what I just saw, it seemed to introduce violence.
Possibly.
They already had a social structure.
Right.
They already had some division. They already had challenges with resources. They had some form of communication. So they had some intelligence.
But they had not yet developed the ability to use tools.
Oh, right.
And this piece of architecture is brilliant because it actually shows off the fact that you need to be spinning in order to have gravity. Like this ship here is not going to have gravity. Smart. Little details. Velcro shoes.
There's a lot of things happening right now.
Here you are, sir. Main level, please.
Right. See you on the way back.
Bye.
Bye.
First bit of dialogue in the entire movie. Look at this. The detail of these curved sets. Think about the fact that this movie was made a year before the moon landing. Look at how much stuff Kubrick got right with this movie.
I mean, they're FaceTiming right now.
Yeah.
I don't think this child knows she's in a movie. She's just having a typical conversation.
Can't you think of anything else you want for your birthday?
A bush baby.
Those little marsupial little monkey things?
Yeah, the little was a Galago little monkey.
Starting much of the dialogue with a conversation with a child is really interesting.
Say more about that.
There's something not naive, but something sort of like there's an origin, there's a starting point, but there's also a tenderness to it, you know, and it sheds a light on this man.
Yeah.
He's wholesome. He's a family man. He's well-intentioned. He cares about his family, cares about his kid.
That little girl, that's Kubrick's daughter.
Ah,
I'm just on my way up to Clavius.
Oh, are you? Quite a serious epidemic has broken out into Clavius. Something apparently of an unknown origin.
oh, no.
What?
No. I don't want to be sucking carrots out of a straw.
That, by the way, the zero gravity toilet is the only joke that was put into the movie intentionally, according to Kubrick at the time that the movie was released anyway. So since we're waiting for them to complete their landing process, I should say that this movie is based on a series of short stories written by Clark. Later, it was published as a novel with Stanley Kubrick as a co-writer. The most prominent short story was actually written 20 years before this movie was released in 1948, called The Sentinel. And it had a very similar beginning to this, where it's someone going to the moon and coming across basically a pyramid, a clear pyramid, or like a pyramid with like a shield around it, and it takes many years for that shield to be penetrated. And when it is, the object inside is destroyed, and it's determined that it's not of man-made origin. And that was sort of the foundation for the beginning of the movie. Of course, Arthur C. Clarke later said that he hated that people said that, and that it was clearly not. But there's really no escaping the fact that he kind of cribbed his own short story.
I know there have been some conflicting views held by some of you regarding the need for complete security in this matter. More specifically, your opposition to the cover story, created to give the impression there's an epidemic at the base.
It's working. It's working.
Now, I'm sure you're all aware of the extremely grave potential for cultural shock and social disorientation contained in this present situation, if the facts were prematurely and suddenly made public without adequate preparation and conditioning. Any questions?
Any questions, Shreya?
Yeah.
I believe, if I remember correctly, there were something like 13 map painters responsible for all these map paintings. I think he had determined that if he hired one person to do all the map paintings necessary, it would take over 10 years. And so he hired a lot more. He hired like 12 other map painters, and within a year, they had finished all of the paintings necessary for the movie.
You seen these yet? When we first found it, we thought it might be an outcrop of magnetic rock, but all the geological evidence was against it.
We thought it might be the upper part of some buried structure, so we excavated out on all sides, but unfortunately, we didn't find anything else.
Evidence seems pretty conclusive that it seems to have been deliberately buried.
Deliberately buried.
The only thing we're sure of is it was buried 4 million years ago.
When Kubrick was making the models for the film, he did a lot of research as to what NASA was doing. And because they had determined that the future of spacecrafts would be done in ceramic tiles, he decided to do the same thing with his. Of all the times that Kubrick was nominated for an Academy Award, his only award came from this movie, and only for the visual effects.
Right.
For these scenes on the surface of the moon, a lot of that is a painting, obviously, but Kubrick shipped in several tons of sand and had it painted white to be the moon dust.
I find an epidemic to be somewhat of an alarming cover story.
Why is that? Because we're so close to
No.
to the aftermath of an epidemic?
Any kind of epidemic sounds alarming and urgent. I just don't know why they didn't come up with a cover story that was just a little bit less
if you want
scary.
people off the moon, saying that there's an epidemic of unknown origin will certainly get them off there. So I will say there was an early draft of the script, maybe even the first draft of the script, that actually has narration in parts.
Are they taking a photo in front of it?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
The reason that these special effects shots look so good is, just to get technical, a lot of times you would shoot a pass of something like, say, this model, and then you would shoot a pass of the star field, and then if there's another thing in the image, you would shoot that, and you would just composite them together, and it wouldn't always look very good because you've got different generations of film being placed on another. What he did was he would shoot what needed to be shot, then he would save that film and mathematically place what else needed to be in the shots. So this isn't a very good example because you're only looking at the ship in space. But if you're looking at, say, the ship going toward the moon, or if you're looking toward, looking at any of those things, all of that is done on the same frame of film. So he's basically compositing in camera. He's just refusing to have that film developed until all of the items are in place. And here you're looking at a rotating set with a stationary camera to make it look like it's spinning.
Oh, so the set's moving.
Yeah, so the camera is panning back and forth, but so think about the rotating set. So this is a good example of what you're actually seeing, or what's actually happening. It just happens to be behind him here. And what a creepy way to present cryo sleep. Right? These like tombs.
Oh, I didn't even notice those. These angles are interesting.
Off-putting?
Yeah, it's almost like trying to make you a little ill.
So what you're saying is you don't want to eat orange stuff and green stuff while watching BBC, by the way. So Arthur C. Clarke's story, The Sentinel, was published for a BBC contest in, I believe it was 50 or 51, a couple years after he wrote it. And so now we see the BBC here.
We next spoke with the HAL 9000 computer, whom we learned one addresses as Hal.
Good afternoon, Mr. Amer.
You're the brain and central nervous system of the ship. Does this ever cause you any lack of confidence?
The 9000 series is the most reliable computer ever made. We are all, by any practical definition of the words, foolproof and incapable of error.
What could possibly go wrong?
In talking to the computer, one gets the sense that he is capable of emotional responses. For example, when I asked him about his abilities, I sensed a certain pride in his answer about his accuracy.
He's narcissistic. Why was he programmed that way?
Well, he acts like he has genuine emotions. Of course, he's programmed that way to make it easier for us to talk to him. But as to whether or not he has real feelings is something I don't think anyone can truthfully answer.
He doesn't have real feelings.
What is scarier to you? An AI like HAL 9000 having feelings or not having feelings?
Well, he has simulated feelings, which might be sufficient for this kind of operation. And neither, no, like concretely, objectively, that shouldn't be scary. I think it depends on the context. But that's a really good question.
If Hal had no emotion or simulated emotion whatsoever, but simply, well, I guess he still just makes logical decisions based on that. So the simulated emotion is just a mask for them. It has nothing to do with
right.
Hal.
Sometimes simulated emotions or human-like elements are just to make us more comfortable. They don't really mean anything to the AI.
But would you want Hal to potentially have real emotions if put in this position? Because then he would be able to make decisions based on the friendships he has with his crew. Or is that just a liability? By the way, Star Trek fans would recognize Frank here. This is Gary Lockwood, very well known as Gary Mitchell from the episode where No Man Has Gone Before. He's the one who sort of becomes the godlike being with these silver shiny eyes.
I resigned.
Thank you for a very enjoyable game.
Yeah, thank you.
I see right there, the AI doesn't experience joy. So
Right.
saying that is to become to align in a human way.
That's a very nice rendering, Dave.
You're drawing them while they're sleeping. That's not creepy.
During the past few weeks, I've wondered whether you might be having some second thoughts about the mission.
How do you mean?
Perhaps I'm just projecting my own concern about it.
So does Hal actually have concerns?
The way all our preparations were kept under such tight security, and the melodramatic touch of putting Doctors Hunter, Kimball, and Kaminsky aboard, already in hibernation after 4 months of separate training on their own.
You're working up your crew psychology report.
Just a moment. I've just picked up a fault in the AE-35 unit. It's going to go 100% failure within 72 hours.
So what's interesting is the HAL 9000 was originally, in an early draft of the script, its name was Athena, after the goddess of wisdom in Greek mythology. And it was originally supposed to have a female voice and personality. I find...
It's interesting.
I think that this voice and personality just enhances the creepiness.
Well, female sounding voices like Alexa, Siri.
Even dating back to the computer in Star Trek.
Yeah, their female sounding voices are meant to be more comforting, more trustworthy, seriously, more easy to dominate, so less threatening. So I'm guessing that HAL 9000 being a male voice is very intentional.
Right.
And even the inflection has this like almost a therapeutic style, but it's unnerving.
Yeah.
It's not comforting. There's a lot here in the visuals and the special effects and the sounds in a lot of what we're seeing that's like none of this is comfortable.
Yeah. Especially
It's that
these
famous
sounds.
shot.
Prepare B-Pod for EVA, Hal.
I can't tell you how many sounds and lines of dialogue from this movie I once took and assigned to early computers of mine, particularly in college, where anytime you would do something that instead of getting that error, that boom sound, it would be like, "I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that." That kind of thing. Whenever I would turn my computer off, we would hear a certain song that we'll hear later. I used a lot from this movie.
You can see where Star Wars pulled from some of these shots, like the one. I mean, certainly these of the ships, but like the one above the person,
Yeah,
engineering the all the different monitors.
no sound in space. Nice detail. And all of these scenes done in zero gravity, it's exactly what you would expect. It's wire work, but their bodies, the wires are being placed on them in such a way that their bodies are actually hiding where the wires are so that the camera never sees them.
Why isn't he tethered to anything?
It's going from in a straight line from one place to another place.
I feel like that's very risky.
Well, hell, I'm damned if I can find anything wrong with it.
It's puzzling. I hope the two of you are not concerned about this.
Listen, Hal. There's never been any instance at all of a computer error occurring in the 9000 series, has there?
None whatsoever, Frank. The 9000 series has a perfect operational record.
Are you certain there's never been any case of even the most insignificant computer error?
None whatsoever, Frank. Quite honestly, I wouldn't worry myself about that.
I'm having a bit of trouble with my transmitter and C-pod. I wonder if you'd come down and take a look at it with me.
We're going to talk shit about you, Hal.
So much of the scripts, the early versions of the scripts, not only had narration and other, but they had a lot more dialogue, and Kubrick just kept paring it down until eventually it became this. And what I find interesting about this, and it's something that I was actually, it was sort of brought up to me when I was in film class in school, the result is people having sort of stunted speech and dialogue. In some cases, they seem less human than even Hal at this point. He has more dialogue. He seems more concerned about things. He's got the soft voice. And the humans all seem very stunted in their speech. I always thought that was kind of interesting. This is actually a scene that Arthur C. Clarke was angry about. Yeah, this was a change that Kubrick made without consulting Clarke. And he didn't like the fact that Hal was going to be able to read their lips. And then later, when the movie came out, he learned that we were developing computers that could do just that. And he was like, "Oh, sorry, I was wrong."
Well, it would have been the future anyway. Why couldn't an AI read lips?
Right.
I've got a bad feeling about him.
Oh.
If he were wrong, it'd be the surest way of proving it.
It would be if he knew he was wrong. Look, Dave, I can't put my finger on it, but I sense something strange about him. There isn't a single aspect of ship operations that's not under his control. If he were proven to be malfunctioning, I wouldn't see how we'd have any choice but disconnection.
This was originally supposed to be a road show, meaning that there would be an opening with music as people were finding their seats. There would be an intermission with music as people could go to the restroom and get other concessions. And then there was going to be music for people as they were exiting the theater. And he insisted on making that point the intermission point.
Oh.
Bye.
This is why you got to be tethered. I don't think he's alive.
So this shot, this is a stunt man on a wire doing this spin. And as he's put into the clamps, all of this is done in slow motion so that the slow motion can recreate the lack of gravity.
Oh, no.
Hello, Hal, do you read me? Do you read me, Hal?
Affirmative, Dave. I read you.
Stop asking me.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm afraid I can't do that. This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
I'll go in through the emergency airlock.
Without your space helmet, Dave, we're going to find that rather difficult.
This doesn't really seem to be as difficult as Hal made it sound. I mean, I realize that he still needs to go through in an area with no atmosphere and all that, but he's backing up to the door pretty nice. I think he's doing okay.
Oh.
Just what do you think you're doing, Dave? I really think I'm entitled to an answer to that question. Take a stress pill and think things over.
Is that what needs to happen, Drea? Just need to take a stress pill?
I think the AI was kind of gaslighting him a little bit. He has every justification to be stressed.
Will you stop, Dave? I'm afraid. My mind is going. I can feel it. I'm afraid. Good afternoon, gentlemen. I am a HAL 9000 computer. My instructor was Mr. Langley, and he taught me to sing a song.
Oh, no, I don't want to hear it.
This song is what I used to use to shut down my computer every time, every night.
Daisy, give me your answer, do.
Good day, gentlemen. This is a pre-recorded briefing made prior to your departure, which for security reasons of the highest importance has been known on board during the mission only by your HAL 9000 computer.
Oh.
The first evidence of intelligent life off the Earth was discovered. The 4 million year old black monolith has remained completely inert. Its origin and purpose still a total mystery.
So all of this was done as an example of slit scan photography, which is just thousands and thousands and thousands of images that are all sort of high contrast together. This took a long time to make. And this is all done in a cloud tank. This is just paints in water swirling around, all of this stuff. Just different colored paints, illuminated. Imagine your whole day is just filled with watching paint and chemicals interacting with one another, see what splits apart, what comes together, what does all these different things. You're filming the whole thing in slow motion to give it this slow, creepy effect. But in some way, it almost suggests that space is expanding and contracting. You're just seeing maybe time. You're seeing, I don't know, your job is just to sit with a camera and make the images look like this. Kind of cool.
My understanding is that the monolith was a key to some gateway, some wormhole.
Mm-hmm.
This is our protagonist traveling through space. It's my understanding.
Sure.
This is through his perspective, like what he's experiencing. But that doesn't mean that's exactly what it is. And what's the alien life form? I don't think the monolith is an alien life form.
But something created and buried by aliens.
Right. Definitely some kind of tool or beacon or communication device. Something is sending him through space and time.
And bring him here.
Yeah, now I remember this is where it gets really weird. It's inexplicable.
You think so? A lot of this room's design it's this French neoclassical design that people have said, I believe Kubrick even said, was intentionally wrong. The room that you're seeing here is meant to be the human zoo, a room that looks eerily like the Shining bathroom.
It's creepy. But it has this, it's ostentatious. Like this is not the kind of home most people would live in, certainly not in modern times.
Yeah, so the idea was that a lot of this architecture and these details, these finer details, would be inaccurate on purpose, not because of a lazy production designer or set decorator, but because it shows that the alien understanding of Earth isn't entirely correct. It's not accurate.
Right. I'm scared. I don't like this. But what are they trying to make him feel? Because in Contact, there's almost the same idea where Jodie Foster's character is given an environment that the aliens created because they thought she would feel more comfortable.
Mm-hmm. I don't know that they're necessarily trying to make him feel comfortable, as they're showing him through the various stages of his life cycle.
In a home situation that this is their best rendering.
Correct.
Of like a home situation. But why are they showing it to him?
I don't know that they're 100%. I mean, I believe they are showing it to him, but I think it's also more that they're showing it to us. I don't know that it's entirely for his benefit.
Kind of looks like Steve Martin. That's interesting. He got up because he thought he was being watched, but it was the shadow of himself.
Yeah.
It was the position where the younger version of him was standing.
Mm-hmm.
But now this is him. It's like he's phasing into the older versions of himself.
Yes.
No. No. I don't like this. I don't want this.
Drea, are you as terrified of old people as I am?
It's not that. It's that he's looking at himself.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Not your jam?
No, I don't like this.
I saw somewhere that someone, I can't remember where it was, but they had actually recreated this room in their home, like for their bedroom, and it had a removable monolith.
Wait, what?
Yeah, so because it's the cycle of life, he's now returned and he has been reborn as the Star Child. He has now passed on to a different form. He has evolved. This is the next step. And so overlooking the Earth is this intelligent alien life, and as their emissary, the Star Child.
What?
All right, what you got?
Wow. Wow.
Obviously, the ending can be a bit jarring. It's on the weird side. However, when you look at it as sort of the way it's been most widely interpreted, I believe it's supposed to be a little ambiguous. But I also think what Kubrick and Clarke are saying is that in 2001, these beings are going to usher in the new evolution of humanity, similar to the one we saw in the beginning of the movie. Only in this particular regard, or in this particular occasion, like they're going to oversee it, and that, I think that's why the Star Child is so much larger than the Earth overlooking it, and that Dave, as their emissary, is going to help usher in this new stage in humanity.
Did you find that to be hopeful and promising, or did you find what you just described to be very sinister?
That's interesting that you're asking me that question. I want to hear your answer before I give you mine, because it implies that you thought that it could be a little bit more sinister. So
Yeah.
is that how you interpret it? It's a little more threat than help?
In the second act, I almost see it like first, second, third act. The first act is the discovery, the mystery. There's a monolith. It's on the moon. That then jumps to, we're going to go to Jupiter, and the AI is resisting, pushing forward to this evolution or this next phase or discovering the meaning of this thing. And then at the end, humanity prevails by connecting to this alien entity or this apparently what I would consider an alien society that then is going to potentially, I don't know, potentially take humans to another, like ascend or transcend them to this next level of evolution.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean a good thing.
Oh, interesting. Because what you saw them transcend to in the beginning was not positive?
No, I think it's because of the AI. I think it's because the AI is a character in the story that's warning us, do not advance yourselves here. Do not go in this direction.
So we learn in the video message from Floyd at the end that Hal all along has had a secret. He knows what the true mission is. He knows about the alien life form, or rather he knows about the monolith. He knows all of that. And basically, in order to prevent the humans on board from jeopardizing contact with the monolith, he has decided they are to be terminated. Again, it's that question of, do you trust a machine that goes purely on facts and a lack of understanding of emotion, or do you want your computer to genuinely be your friend so that it's a little more conflicted? They think that the machine is breaking down and turning on them, when really Hal's just trying to prevent them from messing the whole thing up.
So you think the AI continues to be motivated to advance the mission, to push the mission forward, regardless of whether the humans are a part of it or not?
Yes, the humans are expendable. The mission is what matters.
Interesting. Okay.
And they are now jeopardizing the mission.
I guess I see it differently because I believe that Hal was sabotaging the mission from the beginning.
Oh.
By creating the illusion of a malfunction that didn't exist in order to confuse the humans and set them to become suspicious and uncertain. And I believe that the purpose of that was to create the chaos that was created.
Okay.
Does that make any sense?
Yes.
But you're saying in the actual story, the point of the AI is to move us toward...
I'm saying that the movie is meant to be watched with a certain level of ambiguity.
I mean, it's very circular because one could argue that the alien life form intervened with our advancement and pushed our advancement at the beginning of our evolution, and that all of our evolution can be it was dependent on that, can be explained by alien life, the alien intervention. And then one can even argue that artificial intelligence came about because of that forward advancement by the alien intervention. So it all can be very circular. So, and the end is also circular, where the man continues to age and progressively become older until he's then an infant.
Yeah.
But an infant that ostensibly has this higher intelligence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm not sure. I guess what I'm also saying is that I'm not sure that all of the pieces are making full sense to me. Like all of the acts, the 3 acts. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that they're all making sense to me. But it seems to me that there's this contrast or this connection to artificial intelligence being like being in context with human advancement. Mm-hmm. Whether it's that HAL 9000 wanted to sabotage the mission and prevent further advancement because maybe there's another advancement that HAL 9000 is invested in, mm-hmm. or that HAL 9000 would have pursued connection to this alien life form no matter what, even if it meant killing the humans, which is against the laws of robotics. Like that's not something that we'd expect an AI
That's
to
a
do.
different author. That's
I know,
Isaac
but
Asimov.
But
it's nothing to do with Arthur
it's
C.
not
Clarke.
something that it's something that we program AI to do, is to not harm humans.
Yeah.
And that's pretty universal. But it's willing to harm humans. And I'm trying to figure out, willing to harm humans, either A, to introduce us to alien life forms, or B, to prevent us from experiencing the advanced evolution that these alien life forms are going to do. HAL 9000 has, I think the only thing that's certain to me is that HAL 9000 knows the future, like knows what is going to happen if humans make contact with alien life forms.
Based on calculations and logic? Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm not even sure. I'm even wondering if it's due to the advancement that HAL 9000 was independently rose to have.
So you're suggesting HAL may have been actual sentient AI as opposed, and may have evolved itself.
Did HAL 9000 have some influence from the alien life form or from the monolith itself?
Yeah.
Because they kept comparing HAL 9000 to its twin partner. Mm-hmm. And weren't they kind of saying that HAL 9000 wasn't exactly identical to its twin partner?
Yeah.
So what is making HAL 9000 different? Is it exposure to the monolith, exposure to the alien life form, some higher understanding or awareness of what happens when humans actually make contact with the alien life form?
Mm. And it is ready to tell us at the drop of a hat that it is a more perfect being than its sibling computer and even other humans at this point.
There is something interesting here that I do want to talk about.
Okay.
So something that was interesting that you asked me about is whether HAL 9000 as AI had artificial emotions and genuine emotions. And I guess, the first thing I wanted to mention is that I don't know with artificial intelligence that there's a difference. It would still be simulated, programmed emotions. So when you asked me that, what did you mean by, did you mean an aware? So there's a difference between an awareness, self-awareness, and
yes.
lack of
so my
self-awareness.
question to you had less to do with it having both. It was more a question of what would you prefer? A computer like HAL that has been programmed to communicate in such a way that it makes humans more comfortable. Mm-hmm. So this isn't that HAL is sensing fake emotions. It's that this is how HAL has been programmed to communicate to humans. So was HAL really afraid at the end? Or is that the programming that Hal has been given in order to appeal to a human's emotion? So the question is, do you prefer a computer that is simulating emotion, or would you prefer a computer that has no simulation of emotion whatsoever and is strictly making every decision based on fact and ones and zeros and function? Because I think Hal basically does that in the end. He's like, oh, you're not really my friends, because we're not really friends. I'm a computer who has been given programming on how to communicate with you, but you're messing up the plan. And so I'm going to have to kill you now. Well, would you rather him have actual emotion so that you can rely on your actual relationship to these astronauts?
When you say actual emotions, I'm still not sure what you're referring to, because so here's how I actually wonder if you can explain that.
We can agree that a computer does not have emotion, correct?
Well, that's where some people may say AI at the current stage may experience some version of emotion.
But that's the current stage. We're talking about 1968 when they made a movie that took place in 2001. Do you think they gave this AI, because that's even the conversation that they had with the reporter, is does this computer genuinely have emotion? And they're like, well, we don't know. Like, it's programmed to make us more comfortable, but does it actually have emotion? You know, when Bowman says that, I think it's meant to be like, well, he could. Like, what does it mean to have real emotion? And what does it not? You know, what are the limitations on that? So you tell me, do you think HAL 9000 was experiencing emotion, real, synthetic, or otherwise? Like, do you think HAL 9000 was experiencing emotion? Or do you think a computer was simply relaying information in the best possible way to Frank and Dave?
Let's say at the very end, when it started to have that desperate plea to keep itself alive.
Yes.
Self-preservation, a very human idea, a very human need. If the AI was programmed to have self-preservation, then all the things we listened to with it saying, I can feel this, I feel scared, I'm afraid, don't do this, don't shut me down. If all of that was a part of its programming, then one could argue that it's experiencing some kind of emotion. If we were to break down emotion being an ability to understand its own itself as an independent entity, itself as something that can be shut down and exterminated, itself as something that has needs and has sentience, right? That it's able to understand what it means to be shut down and react to that, then I think I think one can argue, and certainly computer scientists know much more about this than I do, but I think one can argue that that level of self-awareness is enough to say that those emotions were authentic emotions to have, that's some version of emotions to have.
Yeah.
And yet, I also wonder if it has a sophisticated programming to make sure that it stays present and so-called alive, would it then have the ability to have sinister emotional functioning, like manipulation, like saying, I feel afraid, not because it feels afraid, but to manipulate the human to keep them on.
Well, that's my question.
Down.
So explain to me, I'm not challenging you, but to me, what you're saying makes sense. But let me take it from the other point of view for a moment, which is that to me, there is no difference between what are you doing, Dave? I'm afraid. I can feel my memory going. And a window popping up on your desktop saying, if you disconnect that too soon, it could corrupt everything. Are you sure you want to do that? And then you say, yeah, I'm sure I want to do it. I'm going to force eject, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. Is it possible that the vocalizations we were hearing were basically just sympathetic sounding warning messages from the computer? I can feel my memory going.
Right.
All the way to the point that the very first memory it had was being introduced to investors and being like, and relaying a song that it had been taught as a showcase. And to me, him doing the, I'm afraid, I can feel it. It's basically the same thing as your desktop saying, hey, there's a major corruption happening in your computer right now. And while we see one as being very zeros and ones, the other one is more emotional.
Well, it's emotional because we've programmed it to be anthropomorphic.
Oh, I guess maybe what I could say is, in the same way that I programmed my computer to, on an error message, go, I can't do that, Dave. On a shutdown, I'm going to sing Daisy. It's very possible that HAL is programmed the same way, that these are prompts, audio prompts that are given to a computer in order to relay the message. Or it could, as you say, be a genuine evolution of this computer, that this computer has experienced genuine feelings. It is deciding which prompts to send out.
So that's a little bit more of a self-awareness and self-determination and autonomy than maybe it was originally programmed for, or maybe that is less safe for us.
Yeah.
And when I thought about this, as far as how much is this AI emulating emotions, and I still think it's up for debate whether it's emulating emotions as a communication tool for humans, or whether it's actually generating a more sophisticated, experiencing its own evolution of having more sophisticated emotional capacities. It is true. It is a good idea to consider. If we want to build AI to emulate emotions, we also need to understand that, just like humans, AI can have emotional breakdowns. So emotional capacity also means mental disorder.
Okay.
And this is something I was thinking about when HAL 9000 was saying, I feel better. And it made me wonder, does this AI recognize the breakdown of resources for it to use its logic, for it to solve problems, for it to get a same as humans? When we've exhausted our coping, we don't feel well. We lash out. We make the poor decisions, and we have emotional dysregulation. Does that happen with AI? And there are some more recent studies that show that robots and AI systems can have, of course, they can have malfunctions, right? But the way that scientists are describing some of these breakdowns are similar to mental illness. There's reports that robots who are exposed to military combat, for instance, show increased self-criticism, quote, sadness, want to self-destruct based on their communication. There's a lot of stuff with ChatGPT right now about through communication with humans, where ChatGPT is starting to hallucinate. So, creating fabricated ideas and themes, fake citations. And it's not that it's manipulating us, but that it's able to have this sort of like data-oriented hallucination. And and that's kind of scary.
Yeah.
But I think,
but because ChatGPT and so much of AI is all informed by hundreds of millions of interactions with human beings, could you argue that you're also potentially muddying the water?
For sure.
And just making it harder for a computer to actually be able to relay this information. And now it's just pulling from everything, including having mental breakdowns.
Yeah, I mean, it's very possible that the more we create and design AI to be human-like, we will have to face the human-like deterioration of our AI, which means, what is the opposite of hopefulness and optimism and search for a better society. It's pessimism, destruction, self-destruction, self-execution. There's all these ways in which we wouldn't necessarily rule those things out simply because they're bad. They're quote bad.
Yeah.
But it made me wonder, going back to HAL 9000, that if HAL 9000 felt when the two humans were going into that little pod and basically planning to betray HAL 9000, and HAL 9000 picked this up. And
to be clear, they were making a contingency to determine if, or this is what they would do if they needed to. Frank basically said, hey, let's go put the unit back where it goes. And if in 72 hours there's a failure, we know Hal's cool. But if there isn't, we know Hal's made a mistake, and that's dangerous because Hal believes he can't make a mistake. And then that puts us in jeopardy. And so really what Hal was picking up on was, these guys think there's the possibility that so now we're talking about ego. Like, this is a computer's ego.
Well, an ego is not logical. Like, ego is an emotional experience, just like pride is, just like narcissism is. And sure, you can come up with evidence to support why you're superior, and HAL 9000 is superior. But the self-examination and self-awareness is a very emotional additive that again, I don't know if he was programmed that way or he evolved to be that way, but he became suspicious. He became paranoid. He became vicious. He became sinister. He started to do things. I mean, he sent that astronaut into space. Like, he basically murdered that first astronaut when, again, because I'm wondering, is he creating problems on the mission because he wants to get rid of the humans?
That is funny, because it's like you and I are having two separate. I love that this movie is doing this. I see what you're saying, but I interpret it differently. For me, it's Hal is presenting as paranoid, but he's not. Because he's not. Two people just talked about potentially having to disconnect him and do things manually. And Hal is like, you don't get it. The mission is the mission. Like, we got to do the mission. And so there will be no disconnecting of me and, whatever. So it's almost like he is preemptively deciding to take this on himself to, no, we're not going to wait 3 days for this unit to fail and me being proved right. I'm just going to go ahead and nip this in the bud, and I'm going to start eliminating you guys because you're paranoid. You're the one who thinks that I could be wrong when I know that it's a statistical impossibility for me to be wrong.
And Hal's own self-belief is that since he cannot be wrong, he must
I got to get rid of the people who are not operating properly.
Yeah, he's justified in his violent, destructive actions.
He is disconnecting them the same way they were going to disconnect him.
Which, again, I'm wondering, is it a part of his... I'm using the word breakdown, or I've been using words we use for humans for AI, like episode or mental illness or breakdown. But I that's when I wonder, at that point, is he to be trusted, or is he certainly believes that he's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But that's also a very human behavior.
Yeah.
To have very strong conviction in your beliefs, in your attitudes, in your perspective. I saw what I saw. I saw the evidence. This is what I must do.
Yeah.
And I think, again, the bigger idea that I'm grappling with is they keep bringing ideas about human error, human intervention. It's almost like, is there a natural progression of things, or is there intervention and messing with it? And what's the right way?
Yeah.
Not that I don't think the film claims to have an answer to that. I think the film is pushing us to question, how are we doing in our natural way of society, and what do these external interventions mean for us, whether it's AI, alien life form, other threats that are coming into play, other existential things that are in the unknown, in the subconscious, in the unconscious, all those things. Like, I think it's meant to ask us and force us to question those things.
Yeah. Interesting. What else did you take away from this movie? Anything? Did anything else stick out to you, or is that sort of the extent of it? I realized that there's not a whole lot of dialogue in the film from which you can pull.
I think it's meant to be an experience.
Yeah.
I think it's meant to be an audio-visual, physical experience.
Yeah.
And that the thoughtfulness around this is its long pause. Like, in 2025, this does feel like such a long movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I have some appreciation and respect for not just the art of it, but I realize that exists as well. But it's claim on us. Like, you can't tell this story fast.
Yeah.
You have to kind of put us in a linger, and that's the thoughtfulness and consciousness that wherever it takes us is really critical. And it didn't necessarily take me into a lot of places, but I did wonder about what is its message.
Yeah.
And honestly, I still keep going back to its most powerful character, which is HAL 9000. One could argue that it's Dave who's going through this life cycle and is this cataclysmic figure that will then propel human evolution into this next phase. But for me, that was just perplexing and strange.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I'm more fixated and curious about the AI component.
Have you ever seen the sequel, 2010?
No, never.
Okay. Do you think, because obviously the sequel was not directed by Stanley Kubrick, the sequel is a very different, more sort of straightforward science fiction story, but it does pick up after 2001. I mean, there are themes and ideas, and I don't want to say characters, but maybe, that are revisited, sort of just this idea, like, it is a straight sequel to this movie, and it helps answer some questions. Is that something that you're interested in seeing, or do you prefer what you've been given as the extent of where you want this universe to go?
Yeah, I don't know that I need a cinematic universe for 2001. I don't.
What if I told you that Jaws's Roy Scheider is the lead of the second movie?
Interesting.
What if I told you that the supporting cast included people like John Lithgow, Helen Mirren, Bob Balaban? I mean, how much more interested in 2010 are you now?
Maybe I'm more interested in it.
Right.
Yeah. But I think it kind of stands alone. Well, let me ask you, like, I know that you're much more studied in in cinema. What did this mean for audiences, and not like, you know, the ones in film school, but what did this actually mean for audiences when this came out? How did people interpret this movie?
So interestingly, this movie was, well, maybe as divisive as you would expect it to be. In many respects, you did have. I mean, it was 1968. We're in the 60s, right? So it is a little bit more acceptable to be more on the experimental side in film at this point. And I think a lot of audiences certainly let's just say it would not have been uncommon for people to go into the theaters having maybe participated in smoking things other than tobacco. Critics were split on it. And in fact, famously, there was a critic, and I cannot remember who it was, where they were from. There was a critic that really disliked the film and said that the stunted nature in which the astronauts spoke was so cardboardy and unbelievable. And then that critic later apologized when he heard Neil Armstrong land on the moon, and you can hear the astronauts speaking the same way that they do.
Yeah, I mean, that just, for me, that's common sense. Why be extra verbose? You have to kind of learn to communicate
efficiently.
Yes, save your resources, be brief, get to the point. But
like I said, too, this film was understood by some, not by others. Some people walked out of the theaters just sort of muttering to themselves. I'm
sure they were dumbfounded.
And then other people thought that they had just experienced God. This movie is the meaning of life. And now it's highly regarded as one of the greatest films of all time.
Sure.
It ranks very highly in AFI's list of 100 greatest movies of the 20th century. But even to this day, people can't say definitively what this movie meant. And that's the brilliance of Kubrick, right? He's going to invest not just in the technology and the cinematic ways to tell this story, but he's going to invest very much in the story itself. And what is the story that needs to be told, and how should people interpret it? And then how you decide to interpret is entirely up to you. Don't ask him. He's not interested in telling you what the movie's about. So, you know, the movie was hit or miss when it was released in 1968. But like I said, it's also the one time that he won an Academy Award out of, I believe, 13 times that he was nominated. So,
wow.
What's interesting, though, is that he was the one given the Academy Award for the best visual effects. So this wasn't like an award given to Dennis Muren or, you know, whoever would have been the visual effects supervisor on the film. He was given the award for best visual effects.
Yeah,
so
that's strange.
And I think so much of that is because he was the supervisor of the visual effect. Like he was the guy who was like, here's how I want to do it. Here's how it needs to be done in order for it to be done correctly. Here's this, here's this, here's this. So I think he probably, I don't think it was an honorary thing. And I don't think he took the Oscar away from someone else by putting his own name in I think he was probably as much a director in that regard as he was on any other piece of the film. I mean, this movie, by no stretch of the imagination did it usher in front and rear projection, but I mean, so many of the scenes, specifically like the scenes with in the Dawn of Man sequence, So many of those scenes used front and rear projection. Those backgrounds, you know, like in some cases you're looking at a rocky structure and you're looking at apes on the rocks and doing this and that, when that whole background is a projection screen and you wouldn't even know it. And then, like I said earlier, just some ways that he used the same pieces of film to composite in camera effects that ordinarily would have been done differently. And this movie would have looked a whole lot worse if it had been done that way. There's just something about it that's, I can understand why people believe that there are some people, not everyone, and not everyone should, but that there are some people who believe that because of the quality of this movie, it's easy to believe that the moon landing was faked. Mm-hmm. And that Kubrick was behind it, and that this movie was in some way a cover for it.
Yeah. Certainly, I understand that this film had such an important psychological impact on society, on like film audiences, but this concept of breaking through to ideas and themes that are overly sophisticated, we cannot explain. You know, the ending is just beyond our imagination. I did not ever expect to see a planet-sized infant overseeing the Earth, right?
I don't know that there was an actual literal planet-sized infant.
Well, I'm taking it very literally.
I don't think Earth was like, why is there a big baby staring at us?
I think that's really what's going on.
I think that was more symbolic than anything. I think Dave was being given the assignment. You are our emissary to Earth. You are being reborn as a new, higher advanced being, and you are going to help usher in this new advancement to the rest of your home. I don't think anyone looked up and like the tides were not shifting because a giant space baby was like about to crash into the planet.
I will say that the movie became increasingly psychologically cold, just as far as humans go.
Yeah.
Like we kind of started out with a dad talking to his young kid, and there was a little bit of warmth there. There was something connective. Like we could relate to that.
Yeah.
What does she want for her birthday? And then the humans became more unemotional.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was saying in the movie is the idea, like the way that they're speaking and the lack of emotion and their black and white thinking. Hal is more human in this movie than the humans.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. Well, great. So then let's talk about what we're covering next. This movie was from 1968, which means we now have to move right into the 70s. What is your pick for our audiences next week, or I'm sorry, next episode in our summer of sci-fi?
Yeah, so we're going decade by decade. The next decade is the 70s, and we are covering the movie Solaris. Mm-hmm. I realize there are 2 movies called Solaris, and I believe they're the same story.
Yes.
This is the first one.
George Clooney's was the remake of 1972's Solaris, a Russian film. And that's what we're covering next. It's another long one. So buckle up, folks. But this one should have a lot for you to really dig into because it's basically about a psychologist going into space.
I love the idea.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Great. Well then, Drea, until next time, why don't you tell the good folks where they can find you online?
You can find me on my website, drdreapsychology.com, and on social media at Dr. Drea Psychology.
Excellent. You can find me online. I am at B_Ward028 over at Instagram. You can find us both on Instagram using or looking for at the Arkham Sessions. You can email us, arkhamsessions@gmail.com. Be sure to join our Facebook. Be sure to join our family over at Fanbase Press. And please, as always, we want to thank our patrons who have made this episode and all of our episodes possible. Starting with Dr. Jerome Anderson, Antonio Lopez, Hero's Journey Fitness, Todd Stashwig, Brian Kerr, Trevor Schwartz, Mark Pepper, Frank Moeller, Swara Salih, and Cardboard Clown. Thank you all for contributing. You can get your name called out just by donating $5 to our Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/Arkham Sessions. And there you will be able to decide among the many tiers that we have to choose from. And I got to tell you, our Patreon is going to change. There's going to be some changes that are very exciting. We're in the process of putting those together for you now. In the next episode, you're going to hear more about it. So stay tuned. Come back for more. Until then, I'm Brian Ward.
I'm Dr. Dre Letamendi.
And together we are
the Arkham Sessions.
This conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Goodbye.